Hello, Simon Miller here. It's actually Tuesday today because of a bank holiday yesterday and I was away, but we are getting into it with Miller's Musings, which if you don't know is a weekly series about mental health, anxiety, depression and life in general because not enough people talk about it. So I thought, well, hey, the internet exists. I'm a human being. I can talk about it on the internet. Now, one of those words I just mentioned we're actually going to go back to today. It's what the very first Miller's Musings was about, but this is now what? Miller's Musings 26, something like that. Anyway, it's been a long time, and it's the one thing I get asked the most about when people do find these videos or see these videos or hear about the fact that I'm doing these videos to begin with, and that is, as you've seen from the title, about anxiety. Now, I think maybe anxiety and depression are the two topics, for lack of a better term, that kind of come up the most when we're talking about these subjects. And I would probably say if we were going to categorize things, I don't think you should categorize things too much when it comes to mental health, but if we were, they would be the two things I think a lot of people say they struggle with. They struggle with anxiety and they struggle with depression. I'd say probably more often than not, anxiety leads to depression and things like that. Now, I imagine we're going to touch upon a lot of the things we talked about before with episode 1. And please do go watch back that, if you want. But anxiety is a really interesting thing because everybody suffers from it. And yet when you're suffering from anxiety, it completely feels like it's just you, right? You can't handle life or you can't handle this. And, you're living in your own rain cloud or whatever. And everyone's like that, absolutely everybody. And also anxiety can be crippling. I'm pretty sure that everybody throughout their life, or at least 99.9% of people, have woken up one day and felt to themselves, I don't know if I can get through the day because this anxiety is so crippling, literally to the point like I can't, how am I even going to get through a day that you can't even get out of bed? And then, to think all the things you have to do to get to the way you've got to go. So you work in an office, you've got to get up, have a shower, eat, get dressed, talk to people, do your work is just too much. Because, even the thought of doing step 1 is like, no, how am I going to do all the other steps on top of that? And that can be brutal, especially because when you suffer from it once, it becomes a vicious cycle then because you start thinking, I hope I don't wake up anxious today. And straight away you've planted that seed, and it's very likely that you're gonna be anxious. And of course, if that happens long enough, you're gonna start feeling depressed because of course you would. That's not a way that anybody would want to live. And also, it's very hard to deal with that. Then you've got to try and tap into the root of that anxiety and try and figure out what it is. But also sometimes it can just be anxiety for anxiety's sake because it's all to do with the flight and fight syndrome or fight that we deal with as human beings. For example, you're crossing the road, a car's coming at you, your brain sends signals are sent around your body saying, get out the way, the car is going to hit you. And if you didn't have that, the car will hit you and you will die or at least be injured. Whereas that's not a feeling that you want when you're not in danger, and yet it is a feeling that we all suffer from and that we all experience. And if we take medication out of it, because medication does work for some people, but I also know it doesn't work for a lot of others. If we take medication out of it, it can almost seem like magic. Say, you're recommended to go see a counselor or talk to someone or whatever. It can almost seem like magic to hear someone, to be told the way to deal with this is simply to go and have a chat with someone and maybe you'll start feeling better. Because you're like, well, how it's so bad and it's taking over my life to such a degree. How is having a conversation with anybody, no matter what their education, actually going to help? And that's kind of another thing that I wanted to talk about today because it absolutely will. And one of the reasons I do this series is I often find the greatest help you can get, or the greatest, not the greatest help. I mean, you should absolutely go seek out a medical professional, and be that your GP or like I say, counselor, or ring up, Samaritans or whatever to get the help that you need. But sometimes just having a chat can be one of the strongest things possible, or talking to a friend or a loved one and hearing back, oh yeah, I understand, I get it. Then all of a sudden you feel a bit more normal and you feel a bit okay with it. And it makes perfect sense when you are anxious and your adrenaline's up and you're struggling to cope, why you would think to yourself, I'm not normal. I mean, again, these aren't the best words, but I'm not normal, something is wrong. How do I deal with this? And also somebody don't want to talk about it. You may not want to tell your boss, look, I'm really struggling with anxiety here because, again, in 2018, despite the steps forward that we've made, it still is frowned down upon by a certain group of people who I imagine also suffer from it, but have put up a blockade. And they're finding other defense mechanisms to try and not let it overtake their life. And everyone deals with it a different way. There's nothing wrong with that. But it is going to have a knock-on effect to people that may want to talk about it, but have the fear that they're going to get in trouble. There's going to be some kind of repercussions, which sucks, obviously, because you don't want that. You want to know that everyone's in the same boat and that we all understand. And also, if you are in that understanding boat, you're going to get over it and you're going to recover from it a lot quicker. Because that really is, like I say, that is the best medicine that you could possibly hope for, is understanding. It's human to human understanding to know that, yes, we all go through it. No, you're not alone. And, when you do wake up and feel that way, maybe you should ring a friend or go see a GP or whatever. We've done all that. And I think basically the point is this: when we feel like that, we feel like it's not okay. And again, this really does tie back into the first episode. But the fact of the matter that it is, we need these emotions, we need these feelings to make sure we stay alive. And sometimes that crosses over into our real lives. And a lot of the time, the problems that we are experiencing are to do with, they're important, but they're not life-threatening, I guess. And that's why we struggle with it so much. So maybe you do have a deadline at work that you're not going to hit and you don't know what to do about it. Maybe you're struggling with your partner in your relationship, and you don't feel comfortable enough to bring it up, and then that's causing you some issues mentally. Maybe it's as simple as, and again, we've talked about this on Miller's Musings too, maybe it's as simple as you don't know where you're going, you don't know what to do, you don't know where happiness lies, and now you're starting to think about it. And it could be, without wanting to get too morbid, it could just be the thought of death. Death's scary stuff. There's nothing wrong with saying that. Like, I'm a spiritual dude. I have a religious side. But it doesn't mean that you can't, have these existential thoughts. You think, wow, that's a terrifying brick wall that one day we're all going to hit upon. And that can absolutely cause anxiety. And again, there's nothing wrong with it. If anything, life is fun. Not the right word. But life is fun because of all that. Because of the unknown. Because of what the hell is going to happen tomorrow, right? How many times have you been in a slump and then a random email or a phone call or whatever happens, and all of a sudden you're out of it, and the adrenaline's back, and the motivation's back, and you feel rocked and ready to step forward. It's when that stuff isn't happening, where maybe you have a little bit too much time with your thoughts, or things are getting just a little too hard, and you can't see the wood through the trees. That's when we need to take a step back and try and just reevaluate stuff, and remember that everything and nothing is important based on where you are at with your life, because we are all in we're just human beings trying to make our way through every day as best as we can. That comes up a lot in these episodes, but I think that's the thing that I feel maybe most passionate about when I talk about it is there's no worse problem or better problem, or perception is reality and perception is king, of course, but so is perspective. And if you're dealing with something that is not easy, it doesn't matter what anyone else is going through or what you happen to be going through. That is the thing that you need to deal with. Even if it's just something as simple as, I'm a little tight up this month. I've got enough money, but it's a little tight, and you start thinking, well, what if this happens, that happens, then you're gone. You're out of there. I think it's important to note that. I think it's important to talk about that. And I 100% think it's important to always tell ourselves that if we are freaking out a little bit and we're feeling a bit unstable or a little bit off, that we will get back to where we need to be. Some people quicker than others. But ultimately, with the right support network and having the courage is not the right word, but having the belief and knowing that you're in a safe environment where this stuff can be talked about and you're not looked down upon, that you can do that. And remember as well, I don't know how much we've said this, if anyone does give you a hard time for it or looks down upon you or use any kind of negative words or negative behavior, that's their problem. It's not your problem. You're already dealing with stuff. You don't need to take that on board as well. Of course you will, because who wouldn't? You have to be a pretty strong dude not to. But yeah, you don't. It's them. And it doesn't matter who it is, man, woman, child, goat. It doesn't matter who it is. If anybody cannot understand that or doesn't have the sympathy or empathy to at least try and understand where you're coming from, do your best just to let that kind of roll off. Because, it should never be a thing ever. But especially in the modern day, there is no excuse for being ignorant. Nothing wrong with being ignorant, that's the wrong word, because you can be ignorant but at least want to learn and open your mind. But there is no excuse for being aggressive or shutting down when it comes to talking about our mental health. Because what's more important than our mental health? In many ways, it's more important than not our physical health, but our physical health from taking away deadly diseases and stuff like that. Like if you broke your arm, we know how to do that. As a society, we know what that entails. We know what that means. When we break our brains, we're still trying to figure out what the best way to cope with that is as a society. And I imagine loads of people, if you're watching this and you're suffering from mental health issues right now, I imagine you'd give anything just to break your arm because it's 6 to 8 weeks or whatever it is, maybe longer, depending on where the break is, and then you're back to normal. And that's, straight as it's not easy to deal with, but it's easier to say the least, because mental health has no A to B, and it's all about finding your own path. And again, remembering that is fine. There's a reason we struggle. There's a reason we enter these things, and hopefully it's because when we come out the other side, we're going to feel a lot better for it and be stronger people, stronger persons that can help other people who may be dealing with the same stuff. We just got over 10 minutes. As you know, I like to keep these to 10 minutes. Also, something else I am going to do eventually when I get the time. A lot of people have asked these as audio. They wanted to do this, they'd rather listen to it as they're walking around. I'm not going to extend them. I'm going to keep them to 10 minutes, but I am going to release them as a podcast soon. If you follow me on Twitter at Simon316, I'll keep you updated about that. Because a lot of people say they prefer them that way, which is fine. I can just cut the audio and put them up on a server. So I'll let you know when I do that. But until then, as always, you're doing all right. You're going to be okay. It may not feel like it right now. You may be looking at my face going, this guy's a jackass. That's perfectly true and fair. But it will be. And it will be because it has to be. And because deep down, and in your brain, there's things going on, or at least you have a level of strength that you don't even know you have. At least that's what I think so anyway. And I am a jackass, as we just established, but still. Thank you very much for watching, as always. Thank you for everybody that says nice words. Some of the times when I get, nice comments about this, it means maybe more than anything else that I do, because it is very personal. I didn't know how it was ever going to be taken, so thank you to all of that. And again, if you want to share, put it on social media, or just share it with a friend, please do. That's the idea. I'd like to get the message out to as many people as possible. That mental health it's a thing, and it sucks to suffer from it, of course, but let's all keep the conversation going. Hopefully in a few years we'll be more apt at dealing with it, and it'll be more out in the open, which I completely think will then help all around. My name is Simon Miller. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next week.